and when you're ready.
Hi, my name is Delsman from Oregon, and I'd like to reserve the right to yield the remainder of our time to our closing statement.
That is your right.
I'm McGrath from Minnesota.
I'm Kristen Kauffman from South Carolina. In 2010, expenditures from the Social Security Trust Fund exceeded contributions for the first time. According to both the Social Security Administration's chief actuary and independent analysis, the trust fund will run out in 2033, at which point all beneficiaries will face an immediate 23% benefit cut, a shortfall that will grow over time. This is a simple mathematical reality, but it doesn't have to be that way. With two simple steps, we can close 107% of the gap. Step 1, raise the age of Social Security max benefits to 69. In 1935, the life expectancy in America was 61 years old. Today, the life expectancy is 79 years old. This huge increase has not been accompanied by an increase in the max for Social Security, and with a small increase, we could better reflect the reality of this dramatic increased life expectancy.
Currently, Social Security is assessed on a tax cap, so any income that you make up to $118,500 will have 6.2% reduced from it for the purposes of Social Security. However, anything above $118,500 is not taxed at all for the purpose of Social Security, so it essentially becomes a regressive tax, where those who make the absolute most in our country, approximately anywhere between 9 and 16 million people who make more than the cap, only pay a maximum tax, not of 6.2% of their entire income, but of 6.2% of $118,500, which is $7,343. So the absolute richest, so say the 230-some thousand Americans who make more than $1 million a year, will only pay $7,000 in the Social Security tax. So our second step in our proposal is to just remove that tax cap, therefore increasing the amount of money that they would pay exponentially. The conservative estimates say that if this were to go in place, that we could bring in an extra $140 billion, with a B, dollars for Social Security every single year, therefore funding 107% of the current deficit for Social Security, which means not only do we completely balance off that budget, but then we go and fund it an extra 7%, so the Social Security Trust Fund will actually grow over time, thus making it like a flat tax, if you will, and no longer the regressive tax that has millionaires paying 0.73% of their total annual income into Social Security, which millions of people depend upon to lead life every single day.
Now, because this 107% statistic is so specific, I wanted to give you a window into the analysis that we used to get to that number. This is my nerd moment. It makes me very happy. So we used a computer modeling package created by the Center for a Responsible Federal Budget, which is a nonpartisan, non-profit think tank that brings together former secretaries of the Treasury, directors of the Office of Management and Budget, former Social Security chief actuaries from both parties. And they conduct analysis on various reform options. They don't make recommendations about which options we should take. They simply quantify the effects that various reform options would have. Now, this is really cool to me because there's dramatic consensus in this body. These people absolutely agree about what the effects of various reform options would be, and I think that lends a lot of credibility to this argument. So when we say in our results to be expected that we will close 107% of this gap, you can absolutely believe us. And with that, I yield the remainder of our time to our closing summation.
Thank you, authors. You have yielded 13 seconds. With that, the floor is now open to 4 minutes of non-debatable technical questions. Are there any such questions on the floor? Chair recognizes Colorado, Florida, New Mexico, North Carolina, Washington, Texas, Virginia, New York, Texas, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Arizona, California, Massachusetts, Louisiana.
Increased benefits as well. What do these include?
So right now, Social Security pays out benefits on a proportional system. It's very fair. The more you contribute to the system, the more you receive. And so we'll just extend that proportion to the increased contributions that people will be making.
Thank you, author. Next question.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Laura Sargent. I am from Florida. What % of Social Security currently goes to Social Security disability?
I think it's less than 10%, but I apologize, I don't know the exact statistic.
Aaron Ashby, Pocono, Texas. What's the average life expectancy for 2010 plus?
Excuse me, it's 79 years.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Annie Lindsay from the state of Washington. What is the current Social Security deficit?
Social Security is hemorrhaging about $150 billion a year.
Thank you.
Maddie Valadeo, Arizona delegation. With your proposal, when will this fund run out?
Never.
Thank you. Next question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. William Shippey, North Carolina. When was the last time that Congress reformed Social Security?
Congress raised the max retirement age into 2-month increment steps in the early 1990s.
Thank you.
Victor of Alfane, North Carolina. Thank you, Chair. Since you state that the retirement age will be indexed to life expectancy, how often would the eligibility age change?
We would defer that to the Social Security Chief Actuary.
Thank you. Next
Thank you.
question.
Rivera, New Mexico. Thank you, Madam Chair. Would the age change to 69 be gradual or immediate?
It would be gradual. The usual precedent has been for it to go up 2 months per year until it reaches that age.
Currently in Louisiana, thank you, Madam Chair. Now, with the age raised to 69 for the Social Security benefits, how is that going to affect the Social Security credit?
That's
benefits?
debatable. Next question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Megan Stacy, New York State. Which other taxes in our country function as a flat tax?
What was the question?
Which other taxes in our country function as a flat tax?
Medicare and sales tax are the two most notable examples.
Thank you.
Jack Pelosi, California. Do people who make more than the $118,000 cap currently receive any more Social Security benefits than those who make less than the cap?
They do not.
Sammy Strand, the Republic of Texas. Based on this proposal, when the funds increase to a surplus in the future, would this proposal also raise the Social Security benefits?
No, we would maintain benefits constant.
Thank you. Are there any other non-debatable technical questions? North Carolina, Delaware, Wisconsin, Kentucky, Texas, Arizona, New York.
Natasha Menon, Arizona delegation. Thank you, Madam Chair. If they have increased taxes, if they're like the richer are paying increased taxes, would they be getting increased benefits as well?
Yes, that's correct. It is proportional.
Thank you, Madam Chair. William Shippey, North Carolina. Have there been reports of egregious Social Security fraud?
Social Security fraud is widely overlooked.
I would ask for the Republic of Texas, would Social Security benefits be indexed to inflation?
Yes, because they are in the status quo.
Thank you. Next question.
Delegate from Wisconsin, thank you, Madam Chair. What is the average payout for Social Security?
It varies widely based on their income level.
Thank you. Next question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. James Castro from New York State. How many Americans in the United States are over the age of 69?
Between 10 and 30 million.
Jared Wilson, Delaware delegation. Thank you, Madam Chair. How many Americans make above the current cap of $118,500?
Could you repeat that, please?
How many Americans make above the current cap of $118,500?
In 2009, it was 9 million. However, I've seen more recent numbers that say about 16 million.
Thank you. Next question.
Alex Grove, representing the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Madam Chair, what percentage of millionaires actually collect their Social Security?
I do not have that statistic.
Next question.
Masikata delegation, Delaware. Thank you, Madam Chair. Is your payroll
I'm sorry,
tax?
Delegate. With that time for non-debatable technical questions has elapsed, the chair will now recognize the con-intent speaker. The con-intent speaker for proposal number 497. Con-intent speaker is Jordan Madden of Wisconsin. Is Mr. Madden present? With that, the chair will now be calling a con-intent speaker off of the floor. Is such a speaker present? The chair recognizes Mac, Tennessee.
Tennessee. Thank you, Honorable Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, I feel very blessed to have this opportunity to give an intense speech. I was not prepared for it, but I'll take advantage of it. So, I'm in full support of Social Security reform. The only issue I have with this proposal is in Section 2 of the Proposal for Action. It is very easy for us to solve all of our problems by increasing taxes on the wealthy, but we must consider the reason why this is a regressive tax. Our wealthy do not use Social Security because they are saving wealth through their entire life. That is the reason why there is a cap. After you make a certain amount of money, you are not going to be reaping the benefits of Social Security because you already have wealth saved up. And so, I feel as though the authors, want to take money from the wealthy and put it towards something they're not going to utilize. And I don't feel that that is fair. It's easy for us to say that, oh, the wealthy make so much money, and so we should take it and make it more fair. But we have to consider who is putting money into scholarship funds, who is putting money into community service projects. The wealthy are the ones funding that. And so it's easy for us to say that, oh, the government can utilize it better, but we have to consider the fact that the wealthy are the ones who fund certain things. Like, I'll use a personal example. So I attended a private school in Memphis, Tennessee, and where the tuition is $20,000. My family could not afford $20,000, but we could afford some, and the rest was paid by wealthy individuals. So, for
Sorry,
example,
Delegate, could you please display your placard?
and what I was saying is that my scholarship fund is funded by wealthy individuals. So, for example, Fred Smith, the founder of FedEx, is an alumnus of my school, and he has a huge sum of money that he pumps into the school and funds individuals to attend the school who couldn't afford it. And so that is just one example. Our wealthy in America are becoming subject to the tyranny of the majority, and I don't feel that that is fair. This country is built on the foundation that when you work hard, you can do what you want with your money. And I feel as though we need to consider the fact that all of the wealthy are not greedy. All of the wealthy are not being unfair to our country. And with that, I urge us to consider the impacts of Section 2. What type of precedent are we going to set? What type of precedent will we set by saying that every time we have a fiscal problem, we should increase the taxes on the wealthy? And with that, I yield my time to the chair.
Thank you, Delegate. With that, the chair will now recognize the pro-intent speaker. Is such a speaker on the floor? Chair recognizes Jindal, South Carolina.
Vishal Jindal, South Carolina. I would like to address the main con addressed by the previous delegate, and that was that the payroll tax would cause the wealthy to lose money, and the wealthy would be losing to the majority. But I believe that it is important for the majority of our country to be dominated by the middle class, because I believe that a strong capitalist society like America depends on a large, powerful middle class. Now to move on to other reasons why I support this proposal. I believe this proposal has earned its way here. There's plenty of statistical evidence of research written all over it to prove all the points that the authors have made. And I also believe that this is a very important proposal because this has a deadline, 2033. If we don't pass this proposal by 2033, then the trust fund could potentially run out, and the text of the proposal shows the many consequences that could occur if the trust fund runs out. And I believe this is the only proposal that I've seen all week that seeks to solve this nationally important problem. And some might be concerned that this involves new, excessively large taxes, but I don't think so, because it simply expands an already existing payroll tax, and some people might be thinking that it's putting the old in desperate situations by making them wait longer to get benefits. But because baby boomers have a longer life expectancy than previous generations of retirement beneficiaries, I believe that they can wait 2 years to allow us to raise funds to provide for them when they really are desperate. But the main reason why I support this is because the Social Security Administration was one of the many changes that our government implemented to our economy after the Great Depression. And since the Great Depression, I understand we've had a Great Recession recently, but that didn't hurt our economy nearly as much as the Great Depression of the 1930s. So clearly, everything we have done has helped, including the creation of Social Security. With that, I yield time to the chair.
Thank you, Delegate. With that, the floor is now open to con and pro debate. Are there any con speakers on the floor? The chair recognizes Fitzpatrick from Alabama.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Fitzpatrick from Alabama. I reserve the right to live in here many times.
That is your right.
Okay, so the root problem of Social Security is mismanagement of funds, not revenue going into Social Security. That is why in 2033 we will be running out of money for Social Security. So let me tell you how Social Security works. And Social Security is funded by a tax. That tax then goes into a trust fund, and every bit of that trust fund is invested in government bonds. Now, if you were to invest privately for your retirement, no retirement advisor would advise you to invest only in one asset, and no advisor would advise you to invest only in bonds, in government bonds. So then why does government do this? Because the government is funded by these bonds. This is essentially a Ponzi scheme enacted on the American people by the federal government. This is fraud on the highest level. This is a betrayal of the American people who we pretend to be helping. We are not planning for their retirement. We are using people who are not educated or perhaps not aware enough of their retirement savings to fund the national deficit, to fund further programs that bring us further into debt. So, okay, government bonds work because they are very safe, but they do not generate a high rate of return because bonds are calculated on the rate of return being if it's a very safe bond, you don't get a high rate of return because it's just it's simply not worth it up because you're not taking a lot of risk. What we need to be doing is investing in other sources. I think Social Security is a great idea, but the way that we should reform Social Security is to change the way that we're actually investing this money, not simply generating more revenue to face another crisis years down the road. And again, if we're taxing more, that means we're taking more money out of the economy where we would otherwise be stimulating the economy. And obviously these wealthy people are very good at investing money and then funding other things, otherwise they would not be wealthy. And I yield the rest of my time to Cecil.
20 seconds.
Manuel Sessamio, Pennsylvania delegation. The previous delegate pretty much said everything I was going to say, so it was my time to be chair.
Thank you for that very generous yield. The chair will now recognize a pro speaker. Is there such a speaker on the floor? The chair recognizes Justice Ohio.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. My name is Kristen, Justice from Ohio, and I reserve the right to remain the remainder of my time to Ms. Anna from Missouri.
That's right.
Social Security is built upon a house of cards. The current program suggests that it can adequately support retirees based upon a formula destined for failure. The combination of higher life expectancies, lower fertility rates, a smaller workforce, and rapid retirement of the baby boomer population is a combination upon which the house of cards will not stand. The Social Security Trust Fund will be out of money by 2037. By the time we retire, we will receive only a portion of the money from the system, much, much smaller than we deserve. Unless changes are made in the very near future, current 25 to 35-year-olds will face an over 25% reduction in benefits once the fund is gone, and we will only receive 70% of the money promised for us. That number will be even lower. Social Security is designed to support those unable to work and ensure retirement, and the program must be saved. But to do that, it must be reformed. We have seen this trend increase due to the retirement of the baby boomer population. Today, 12% of the total population is age 65 and older, but by 2080, it will be 23%. At the same time, the working age population is shrinking from 60% today to a projected 54% in 1940. Ladies and gentlemen, unless we have extra money saved ourselves, our chance of retirement is a fairy tale. And raising the retirement age for Social Security is vital to molding the house of cards into a strong, safe, and stable retirement. I yield the rest of my time to Ms. Anna from Missouri.
Kate Hannig, Missouri delegation. I'd like to bring up a point that a previous speaker brought up about the bonds that the government invests in. They only invest excess money into those bonds, so it's not all the money that is paid into Social Security goes into those bonds. It's only the excess money. Now, another point I'd like to bring up is that if we do not fix Social Security, not only do millionaires not get Social Security, but everyone doesn't get Social Security. And the blatant disrespect in this country for wealth equality is, quite frankly, despicable. Thank you, and I give the rest of my time.
With that, we will now recognize a con speaker. Is there such a speaker on the floor? The chair recognizes Braun, Pennsylvania.
Andy Wrong, Pennsylvania delegation. Thank you, Madam Chair. I reserve my right to yield the remainder of my time to Ashby from Texas.
That is right.
All right, now none of us are disputing today that Social Security isn't fundamentally flawed. However, we need to talk about this proposal, what we're looking at right here. All right, again, I have an issue with Section 2. The existing cap may seem entirely arbitrary, and maybe it's not the sweet spot for our economy right now. But but removing it entirely would result in the largest tax increase in U.S. history, over $1.3 trillion over the next 10 years. All right, this is about the majority. When you take $1.3 trillion out of the economy, it will ricochet across every single socioeconomic class. This is a huge issue. We do not have the capacity to predict how an action of this magnitude will affect our economy. And how ephemeral will this solution be? How extensive will its effects be? Will we just placate the American people into a false sense of security and lull debate on an issue that needs to be discussed right now? Like FDR, when they originally created Social Security, didn't have, his administration didn't propose a cap. They added it later. And if that doesn't make you question the moral integrity of this proposal right here, if FDR's progressive administration didn't accept a tax, a cap, I don't know what does. With that, I yield my time to Ashby.
40 seconds. I'm Ashby, Republic, Texas. Let's look at the reason why this cap was originally instituted to begin with. This cap was originally instituted to protect unincorporated small businesses in which all the profits and all the income that it looks to be going to one person instead of actually going into a corporation. So when these people making statistically look like they're gaining lots of income, however, they're also paying large amount of taxes and also paying large amount of expenditures to keep the businesses going. Not only that, we have to look at the life expectancy. Life expectancy is going up in gains in statistically alone. People are not living longer, people are just not dying younger. So the average is statistically rising, however people are
Thank you, delegate. Your time has elapsed. The floor is now open to a pro speaker. Is there such a speaker on the floor? The chair recognizes Graham, Oklahoma.
Graham, Oklahoma. I would like to reserve the remainder of my time to that topic. I'm in strong proposition of this proposal because it secures our Social Security in a feasible and responsible manner. Social Security is vital to the health and well-being as well as financial security of the retired men and women that have called our country home for so long. It is only right that after working long and hard and being productive members of society that we give them the money they deserve and need so much in less. When Social Security was implemented, the work to retirement ratio was 37-1. Now it's 2-1. This is no longer feasible, therefore it must be changed. I would rather start improving now and take cuts than have a serious problem in the future. In other words, is it better to climb the staircase or the wall? Thank you. I yield the rest of my time to Heather Kauffman.
1 minute.
Victor Balfe, North Carolina. Thank you, Chair. So, Social Security is a very large part of our non-discretionary spending in our federal budget. Thus, if we are not able to control this increasing gap between the amount that's brought in and the amount that's taken out, we're going to have uncontrollable deficits moving into the future. In addition to that, Social Security was meant to be a flat tax, but the way it is implemented right now with the cap, it is a regressive tax. Also, a previous speaker mentioned Fred Smith, who's the founder of FedEx. I'd like to cite that this same individual, along with Lloyd Blankfein, CEO of Goldman Sachs, and many other executives who are millionaires and billionaires have said that we do need to take away this cap so that workers who have worked hard their whole entire life and have put money into this system can reap the benefits they deserve. I also want to say we have a consumer-driven economy. Thus, when the middle class puts more money into the economy, that is what grows it. Our economy grows from the middle out, not the top down. Thank you, and I yield the remainder of my time to the author's closing summation, to the chair.
Thank you, delegate. The chair will now recognize a con speaker. Is there such a speaker on the floor? The chair recognizes Calta, Delaware.
La Cicada Delegation, Delaware. Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to start by applauding the intent of the author's proposal. However, the very same people who it states to help is actually hurting instead. A retirement age hike would unfairly hurt workers in physically demanding jobs, those in poor health, and low-income groups whose life expectancy hasn't gone up. Many people over 65 would also be hurt since age discrimination can make it hard for seniors to secure jobs. Instead of helping people, It's hurting them instead. I yield the remainder of my time to the chair.
Thank you, Delegate. With that, we will now entertain a final pro speaker. Is there such a speaker on the floor? The chair recognizes Han, Tennessee. Please make case.
Bailey Han, Tennessee. Can I reserve the remainder of my time?
That is your
I think this is a great proposal. I don't see why we shouldn't pass it. I yield my time.
2 minutes.
Thank you. Connor Hurley, Great State of Tennessee. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, fellow Speaker. Fellow delegates, Social Security is an integral part of the American dream that keeps millions of our elderly and disabled out of poverty each year. Many solutions that are offered are purely partisan. However, this proposal at hand could be called the great compromise of our generation. Instead of creating a stopgap measure to temporarily fix Social Security, this proposal solves the largest fiscal and budgetary issue of our time forever. The retirement of the baby boomer generation will create an unfunded mandate of $55 trillion with a T dollars that this compromise will completely fund. This is something to surely get excited about. With a projected bankruptcy of Social Security set for the early 2030s, no delegate present will receive Social Security as we know it. However, if we enact this common sense policy, all Americans and all future generations will receive the hard-earned money that they worked for. I implore the Assembly to pass this proposal in the name of anti-poverty, Social Security and retirement, and the general welfare of all Americans. I yield my remainder of my time to the chair.
Thank you, Delegate. With that, we will now entertain a final con speaker. Is there such a speaker on the floor? The chair recognizes Reese, Texas.
Francesca Reese, Republic of Texas. I would like to reserve the right to yield the remainder of my time to Thompson from Michigan.
That is your right.
Delegates, one thing that I believe the previous con speaker touched on but maybe did not address fully is that raising the retirement age disadvantages those that have historically faced socioeconomic disparities within our country. A previous speaker touched on the fact that the socioeconomic disparities that many minorities in our country face are deplorable. This proposal only would further those disparities by raising the retirement age and raising the age that those that are either physically, economically, socially disadvantaged would be able to take benefits from the government. Raising it, even if it is in these increments that the proposal authors are suggesting, would disadvantage these people further because it would disallow them from gaining the benefits that they have worked for throughout their duration of their lives. And with that, I'd like to yield the remainder of my time to Thompson from Michigan.
1 minute. Natalie Thompson, Michigan delegation. There's one thing that I want to mention. It was stated previously that only excess money is invested in these government bonds. And while that may be the case, that doesn't mean that the federal government doesn't borrow against the Social Security Trust Fund. Social Security's trust fund doesn't actually contain real assets because when the debt ceiling crisis occurred several years ago, there was significant concern about whether or not the trust fund would actually still be able to pay out Social Security checks. Because in reality, Social Security's trust fund is not entirely solvent. The federal government frequently borrows against its assets and spends them and later must borrow from the general funds to actually pay out Social Security benefits. And this proposal doesn't address that issue. If there were another issue with the debt ceiling or a government shutdown, the federal government would likely still be unable to pay all of these benefits out, and we need to stop the leak in our Social Security trust fund and stop allowing our government to borrow against these funds before we can start putting more money into them. Thank you, and yield the remainder of my time. Thank you, Delegate. With that, time for pro and con debate has elapsed. The authors are recognized for their 2-minute and 13-second closing statement. You can begin when you're ready.
Ben Delsman, Oregon. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to go a little bit fast, but I want to address every single con point that was raised. First, we talk about how we're taking money from the wealthy and putting it into programs that they won't use. This occurs literally every single day when wealthy people pay into welfare funds or food stamps, or elderly or childless adults pay into schools they won't use. But we as a society have decided that we are wealthy enough collectively that we don't need our elderly, our disabled, or our orphans to starve. Next, what kind of precedent will we set? One where we have a fairer tax code, where we don't have a system where the rich pay 0.72% of their income into Social Security taxes, and the poor pay 6.2%. Now, referring to a previous delegate, he said that we need to change how Social Security is managed and increase returns. Now, this isn't about maximizing returns like, for example, a hedge fund. This is about providing a social safety net that's guaranteed. so our elderly don't have to eat dog food or become homeless. Furthermore, this is the OASDI Trust Fund, which stands for Old Age Survivors and Disability Insurance. It would be irresponsible to gamble with the money we've earmarked for our elderly and orphans. Next, we had a previous delegate, said that this is about the majority in reference